Obviously, this one is focused on, I guess, public safety. I don't know what was the clue. Obviously, we're in a firehouse, and I want to welcome everybody to this event. It'll be a great evening. It's in a great spot. We have some breeze flowing through here, so I was a little bit concerned about the heat, but as the sun's going down, it's getting a little bit better. We've got the fans, and we've got a lot of good airflow coming in through here. We started to do these because when I ran for office, I wanted to make sure that we had town halls across our community. And we've been doing them every quarter since I was elected. And it's the opportunity to take City Hall on the road, if you will. You know, City Hall, if you go and look at it, it's just a building, right? It's brick and mortar. It's got offices and carpet and glass and all those kind of things in there. It's just a building. But it represents more than just a building, right? It represents the seat of our local government right there. Council chambers is there and those types of things. When people come to council chambers and want to address council, it can be intimidating, can't it? It can be intimidating, okay? And not everybody wants to come and do that. But at the same time, they have issues that go on in our government, right? And so the thought is, let's break down that barrier. Let's open up and let's bring people into the government. Let's bring people and engage the community where they are. So we've had these throughout the community. Last one was at the new library over on Shadow Creek Parkway, West Pearland Library. If you haven't been over there, it's not just a library. It's not your average everyday building. It is truly a place for our community to come together and have a community hub. It's what it's for. It was built for that, more than just a library, and we want you to take use of it. So we're here on a night to talk about public safety. We're going to be bringing up various people throughout that are sitting in the audience here to give you some information on what we do to help keep you and I and our citizens safe. One of the things that you can do is you can take your phone right here and you can submit a question. We're going to have a question and answer period in the midst of the program. You can submit a question here. You can also, when I get to that, raise your hand and I'll take your questions. We'll do open from the floor type questions. So back a couple of months ago, we had a long time standing fire chief, Vance Riley, retire. 40-year career in firefighting. Different departments around the state. Finished his career here, I think, after 11 years. Really and truly turned our fire department from the volunteers, from a hybrid of volunteers and paid staff into a full paid firefighting unit, and then combined our EMS services along with our firefighting services, and did a tremendous job laying the foundation and the groundwork to where we are today. Helped build some of these facilities. In fact, this was the last facility he was a part of in getting open. But through that, we did a national search, and we've got a new fire chief here in Pearland. He's been on the ground about 5 weeks now, and we're in great hands. And I'm going to bring Chief Jay Taylor on up. Chief, come on up, because I want you guys to get to know our new fire chief.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a seat.
I think I will. Thank you.
So Chief, just give the folks just a little bit of background and who, where, and when you came from and how you got here.
Well, I was raised by Texans in Oklahoma. Don't hold that against me. My dad was an equine veterinarian and did reproductive work on a lot of broodmare farms in the Purcell, Oklahoma area, which was the quarter horses, like Lexington, Kentucky is the thoroughbred. So I grew up in the horse racing industry, rodeoing, doing all those types of things. Went to high school, the small 3A high school, similar to how Pearland was back in those days. I was in '85, so Pearland was roughly the same size in that time frame, because I ended up at Tyler Junior College at one point playing football in the University of Tulsa. And then at Tyler, I met this young lady over here, Stacy, who's my best friend and happens to be my wife for 29 years. And she ended up going to Texas Tech, and I went to Tulsa. We stayed good friends and got back down to North Texas. Got in the corporate world for a few years, realized that really wasn't what I wanted to do, and I had some really good friends from high school that had kept pushing me to be a firefighter, and I gave it a try. I put myself through academy, and day one I was hooked. And so I spent a year in Addison, Texas, which is in the DFW area, and a small town, and then spent 25 years for the city of Irving. Irving is very similar to Pearland, especially size-wise. Demographically, it's very similar. Geographically, it's very similar. It's striking. It's just not at that size yet. But when I got to Irving, it was about the size Pearland is now, and now Irving's 260,000. So I was there 25 years. My last 6 years as assistant chief, and then became fire chief for a small town trophy club, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's a kind of an affluent golfing community. It was a complete 180 from Irving, but it was a great experience. And then Stacy and I, we started looking for that other opportunity, and Pearland just really came out of nowhere, and it fit us to a T, and we really weren't sure until we started reading the signs. It all started coming together. We came down and met everybody in Pearland and realized how at home everybody here makes you feel. And everywhere we went, from just the diversity in this city, we love that because we come from a very diverse family. And the size of the city, the way it's growing, the way it is a sheltered growth or a controlled growth where there's a lot of thought that goes into it, down to one of the first things Stacy noticed is any entry into Pearland, you see the vertical green signs that say Pearland, and she said they care enough that they put that there so people know where they are, and that says a lot about, and that was our first introduction to Pearland coming in here, and so we loved it, and just, I always say man plans and God laughs because he has a master plan, and we thought we knew it was the best for us, but Pearland was the place, so we're glad to be here.
Well, so you're here. Obviously, a staff has been built, the team has been built. May not be complete. I think we've got some open positions and that type of thing. But you're here and you've got the men and women in the department. Give the folks a little bit insight of what you see in that team today, and where do you want to take it?
I see greatness. I was really impressed with the ability and the talents around me. And I always say, I played football 18 years and I refereed college football for 25, so I go back to football a lot. But good coaches surround themselves with good assistant coaches, good players. Great coaches surround themselves with people smarter than they are. And I inherited that here. And so I was very fortunate that when I jumped in here and I had two assistant chiefs that bring more to the table probably than I do. They've probably forgotten more about fighting fire than I know. We all have roughly the same amount of years in the service.
That's good. But
we all have varying talents that work really well together. So that cohesiveness that we had from day one, and Chief Burton and I really hit it off wonderfully. And there's a lot of things here that we need to address in a good way. They're good challenges because Chief Riley did an outstanding and an unbelievable job making that transformation from volunteer to a fully professional department. And it was like skipping a rock. There were a lot of milestones that were hit during those years. We're working between the skips now. That's what we're working on. So it's the little things that set you apart. We're focusing on those little things to bring that professionalism up to match what's been done already. And we want Pearland to be the icon around here. And it doesn't matter if we have 6 stations, 11 stations. We can be the ones that even the bigger departments look at to see how we're doing things and doing it right. And they will. And you've heard me say, pardon our dust. And I mean that because we'll move fast and we'll accomplish a lot of great things here. But I inherit just a wonderful group of people with a varying amount of talents. And so we're gonna get a lot done here. I'm excited.
So speaking of moving fast, right? Obviously we're in a firehouse and it's currently kind of offline. So you won't see any of this moving just yet unless something just really breaks out. But so Pearland, with the number of stations we have, I'm going to ask a little trivia question, a little interactive with the audience. Council members excluded because you may know this answer. But we make a certain number of calls every single year, both fire and EMS calls. And remember, it's a combined department. So a show of hands, how many people think, and I'm going to throw a number, 11,000 calls across the city, okay? Is it high or low? Is it high? Raise your hands. So it's higher than that? So it's not lower than that. Chief, what is it?
I guess they did read the information. We've made a little over 14,000 runs in the last year. Right. You want me to get into EMS or is that?
Yeah, and how much of that's EMS?
Just over 10,000 are EMS calls. So, we're a fire department it's an all hazards department. So we do a little bit of everything. When people don't know what to do, they call the fire department and we handle it. But one of our big components is EMS. We're very strong in that, and we're making some great strides already. We just won the American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Award, and that's for excellence in cardiac pre-hospital care. So in ST elevated myocardial infarction, we had one today, as a matter of fact. We had a patient that our medics at this station ran on a patient who's a lifetime Pearland resident and got them to the hospital, upstaged the cath lab. From what we know, she'll be walking home in 2 days. So that's what it's all about. That's what our people can do, and they're trained to do that. It's excellent, and it's my job to let people know that they have that ability, but they're being recognized by entities such as the American Heart Association. So EMS is 72 to 75% of what we do. The amount of fires that we fight, rescues, that hasn't lowered any. Am I there?
Josh, there we go.
Here we go.
There we go.
Our other calls haven't lessened, but EMS continues to rise, and that's a predominant part of what we do.
Yeah. So talking about numbers, right? One of the things that Chief Riley really aspired, we got the official letters just as he was retiring right before you came in, but every department in the nation strives to be ISO 1 rated. So tell the folks a little bit about what ISO means for the department, what it means for them, a little bit about how you get that.
Okay. Absolutely. ISO is the Insurance Service Offices of America, and they have guidelines that they predicate their baselines, how they pay their rates from an insurance perspective. So they look at how safe a city is from a fire perspective, what their water distribution is like, and how good their emergency dispatch, how good that is as well. 60% of that is fire related. It has to do with staffing, response times, station locations, everything that you put into place for a fire department. But then also 30% of that is your water distribution. And we have an excellent water department here in the city of Pearland, so they scored almost perfectly on that. The final 10% is your emergency dispatch. We go through ECOM here in the Harris County area is who we are dispatched from on the fire side. PD, police, is dispatched here in Pearland, but that is all put into they crunch those numbers and come out with it. In ISO, roughly 10 is the worst score. There's some cities that aren't even a 10, but you can be a 10 up to a 1, and 1 is the best. And when you get to a 1, there are several insurance companies that adhere to the ISO rating. There are some that say they don't, but they have their own baselines that they use, but they're all loosely predicated off of the ISO ratings. And so with that ISO 1, that's a huge jump. And what that does for us as a city, even though the fire department has a lot to do with that recognition, it's a citywide award and a recognition because it benefits not only our residents, but our homeowners as well. And hopefully they can reduce some of their insurance rates because of that ISO 1. But when new business wants to come into our community, the first 3 things they're going to ask is, what's the road infrastructure like?
Right.
What are the schools like? And what's the ISO rating? And so we're knocking those 3 out of the park, and as we're growing, we'll continue to increase our road infrastructure, and it's getting better all the time. But those 3 components are very important. And so for us to have that ISO 1, and you'll see us display that proudly, as you see up here.
That red background is going to go on these red trucks.
Yep.
So you can imagine how that will pop once you see it on the trucks. The other one is going to go on our Public Works trucks as well. Because again, Public Works and our water distribution side of things play a big part in getting that ISO rating. You can get the firefighters there, but if you can't get the waters there, it's kind of useless. Right. So it's truly a team effort. Let's use the sports analogy. It really is a team effort to make that happen.
Absolutely. And that was me? Okay.
That was Josh.
Nothing's fireman proof. We can break anything. No, we have these logos. We wanted to do something that was unique. And Josh and our communications department, their staff got together, and we wanted to do something that was all Pearland, that wasn't just fire related. A lot of fire departments will do a fire department related ISO patch or logo that goes on their equipment. We wanted to do something here that was all encompassing. Right. So it's the same logo. It kind of falls back to some of the branding that we're going to be seeing here in Pearland, but the red you'll see on our fire equipment, you'll see that, and that yellow one will be a gold flake that's traditional on fire equipment, and then you'll see the the one on the white equipment for the water department. So we'll show that proudly, and when you see that, that's what that represents. So we're very, very proud of that.
Well, Chief, thank you for coming our way. Welcome to Pearland. I can't wait to see how and where you're going to take the department. I think we're in great hands with the leading of that department, also filling a few positions, and I can't wait to see where we're headed.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you all.
Honored
to be here. I'll take that with
Oh, yeah, right here. So, as we mentioned, we're in a certain time of the year. In the Gulf Coast, it becomes kind of crunch time, right? Hurricane season started June 1. We have many partners in a lot of this equipment and used in the midst of our emergency services. But one of the team members that's a part of our team effort is through that is the National Weather Service. So we've got Lance Wood here. Lance, have a seat and welcome. Thank you for being here. We're into that critical time of the year, as y'all call it, crunch time, and that time of the year. Help the folks understand sometimes where can they go for great information, maybe a little bit about how to read and understand some of it, but what does the National Weather Service kind of do each and every day during this time of the year?
Yeah, great question, Mayor. Well, our mission is to protect lives and property.
Right.
And so that's something that resonated with me when I was actually a college student and kind of wanted to get into weather and help people with weather, so learn as much as I can. So that's really what it's all about. And now there's lots of ways we try to do that. One of them is doing what we're doing here tonight, just getting that message out. Not only that it is hurricane season, but then we talk a little bit about the hurricane season. What threats do we have here? What are the main threats? What does this season look like? And then how can you prepare for it? Have you thought about it? Do you have a plan? We found out many, many years ago, going way back to 2005 with Rita, that about 90% of people in this hurricane-prone region didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
And so they kind of panicked. They hadn't really thought through what to do when a big hurricane was coming. And
Right.
some people just, because they didn't have a plan, they just left when they probably could have stayed,
Right.
and assessed their own risk at that point.
So we're on the early side of hurricane season. It goes all the way out into like November. When is the real hot season for post-hurricane season?
Yeah, great question. I think we have, there's the slide. So, June 1st is when we start, obviously. There's actually been some talk of rolling that back to May 15th, but that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But there have been several storms the last several years in May. But this frequency graph, you don't have to really worry about the numbers. Just kind of look at the dates on the top, and you see we're headed towards a peak in August that peaks in September. So, yes, although we have June and July activity, it's much less than what happens in August and September, and then it starts to ramp down in October.
Right. Yeah, obviously it tracks kind of the heat of the water and those types of things as well. It's a little bit cooler, then it gets hotter, so those storms can feed off of that and then come on in. So where can people go to plug in and understand, especially if we've got a storm that's kind of tracking and we're starting to keep our eyes on it? Where are some good places for them to go and just get good information?
Yeah, go past this slide, Josh, and I think, so go back one more. Can you go? There we go. So this is kind of my starting point for people during the season. If you could go to the National Hurricane Center's website, they have a tropical weather outlook. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that you can actually see what's happening in the tropics. And it's very appropriate for today. There is a medium chance, 40% chance of development of this system in the Western Gulf. And this is a nice official source. Government forecasters, they partner with us, the local offices, and you can see what's going on in the tropics. You can click on each one and you can get a little paragraph. So for kind of what's happening now and to monitor, I would look at products like this. Be really careful with social media. It's gotten crazy out there. There's a lot of people that will even put government logos on posts that aren't really a government image.
They think they're official?
Yeah, and so we do a lot of rumor control,
Right.
and that's really ramped up in the last 10 years. So just make sure whatever information you're getting is trusted information from a trusted source.
Yeah, I think what's important on that is just making sure that you're getting good, trusted information and help those that are in the know. Let's spend their time doing what they need to do rather than trying to address rumor mill on social media. I'd rather I'd rather a weather forecaster really diving into the numbers and the science behind what they're doing, and getting on social media to try to track the bad information. So, let's do what we can to make sure that we promote trusted sources and those kind of things. So if I understand this slide, there's actually activity in the Atlantic right now that could develop and move into the Gulf. What could we be looking at if this actually forms, say, over the next 10 days?
Yeah, so this first one that's close to us, we'll get rid of that one first. So that one's going to come inland tomorrow.
Right.
About all it could do is become a depression, probably not a storm. So really the main concern there is just heavy rainfall, which we've been kind of messaging on that end, which we really need, by the way. So it's actually a good thing in most cases here. The one that's further south, that potential tropical cyclone 2, hasn't actually developed, but it's expected to. That's why it's red. It's going to stay well south of us and most likely go into Nicaragua and then into the East Pacific. And now that other one, it's a lower probability. That's why it's in yellow. It looks like it's gonna have some problems down the road. Might be a little bit of wind shear. Could be some dust that gets into the system. So right now we're just kind of monitoring that one, and but that's one that could have a trajectory closer to us. But our atmospheric models don't particularly like it in the long term. So
Right.
hopefully not an issue for us.
So, the words during hurricane season is we've got folks in the back that are part of our emergency operations team. They are being prepared. Our staff and our firefighters and our police and all of our public works folks are being prepared. You've got folks at the National Weather Service being prepared for what they're doing. The missing component to that is making sure that our citizens and our residents are prepared, okay? You are part of the team. It's not just the paid staff doing everything for us, but it's really incumbent upon you and me and everybody else to be ready during storm season. So we really, and in fact, there are lists of things that you can go and kind of buy and be ready. Water, staples for eating, any kind of things of that nature, that if you're going to be hunkered down and you're going to be in here for a while, you have what you need to survive and get through, several days without having to get out and to the store, those types of things. If you need to bug out and get out, you have those types of sources as well. So we ask each and every resident to do your part. As we prepare, you prepare, and in it together, it's a team effort that we come through these storms. If one comes as a direct hit, we get through it together. The biggest thing is don't panic buy. Don't wait to go to Kroger or H-E-B or anybody else, at the last second, because they have barely a day's worth on the shelf. So that's going to be gone in 2 seconds, and then you're going to panic buy. You're not going to have what you need. So start today in being prepared. Lance, thank you for coming by. Thank you for the partnership with our EOC group. Hopefully we don't have a storm this year. But if we do, I'm sure we'll see you online somewhere and get great information from the National Weather Service. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, for having
All
me.
right. Thank you. Try and move. No. All right. Sounds like it was me holding it back. I was putting a crunch in it. Sorry about that. All right, we're going to move into one of our panel discussions. So I'd like Chief and John and Rance, y'all make your way up here. And as they're making their way, we're going to go and talk about some of the nuts and bolts about what we see in our community. And some things that you might not think are necessarily public safety related, okay? But it all works together for each one of us. I'm going to start with Chief Savage over here. He's one of our assistant police chiefs in our police department. Forgive me. In our police department. Wow. I know, where I'm in the firehouse, and I got caught up for just a second. But with that, so Chief, tell us a little bit about training. Obviously, we're in Fire Station 4. We had a fire station next door. We built a new one, and what's going to happen there, and how is that important for the residents in their safety?
So we're actually pretty excited about that. We're going to revamp that, the old Fire Station 4, into a public safety training and education building. Now, the primary purpose of that building is going to be to house our police academy.
Right.
We recently obtained state certification to run our own police academy, And there's only a handful of agencies our size in the state who have received that certification. And what that's going to do is allow us to have those cadets, those soon-to-be officers, adopting the Pearland way 4 or 5 months earlier, whereas before they would have been shipped out to a college somewhere
Right.
or to another police agency. So we place a big stress on training in our agency. Last year, we hosted approximately 38,000 hours of training.
Wow.
And we had officers from all over the state, frankly, all over the nation, come here. Over 600 officers from different agencies came here to obtain training. And so we're really being recognized as the regional training hub for law enforcement. And the importance of that is that not only is it increasing the skill set of our officers and providing better service to our citizens, it's actually increasing the skill set of law enforcement in the Southeast Texas area. It's been said, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And so if we can get better and make all the other law enforcement agencies in the area better, then all of our citizens are going to be better served, and it's going to be safer communities all the way around. Criminals, they don't pay attention to city limit signs.
I'm just perfectly fine if a criminal just drives through and gets out. I am absolutely okay if a criminal hits and knows, wait a minute, Pearland catches people, I'm not doing anything here, go somewhere else. Preferably go back home, because most of this is coming from our north. Hand the mic to John there for just a second. And John's with our Animal Services Manager. I think I got that title correct.
Yes, sir.
Next door, if you had the opportunity to do the tour, is a brand new animal control shelter and adoption center. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And so, John, share us a little bit about what this facility versus the old facility, kind of the differences, but also what is it going to allow you to do in that maybe you're not able to do today?
Sure. So our existing facility started back in the 90s and has had some updates, but is lagging what we need now. So this current facility is going to almost triple our capacity for dogs and for cats, which is going to allow us the time that we need to get these pets into homes. We're going from about 9,000 square feet to just around 20,000 square feet. This is the facility for decades and decades. It also has a veterinarian suite in it, so we will be able to perform sterilizations and potentially minor surgeries here at the shelter. And to sort of piggyback on the training aspect of it, we do have a training room so that we can begin to show how we do things in Pearland to other animal control agencies.
So, John, how and why is animal control up under police department? How is it part of public safety?
So animal control was originally developed as a rabies control. It's developed into a much more expansive position. We handle enforcement of city ordinances, which is a very good reason for us to be under the police department. We investigate animal cruelty allegations. Oftentimes we need detectives and sworn officers' help with that. So it provides the structure, it provides the support that an enforcement type agency like us would need. Okay.
I'm gonna hand the mic to Rance. I'm gonna come back with the $1 million question that comes around animal control in just a minute. It's kind of controversial, so we'll build up to that just a little bit. Rance Rame is part of our fire department, but he's more importantly there is just lost a train of code enforcement. Golly, I saw the fire patch and I go, you're not a fireman. Part of our code enforcement. And a lot of people, when they drive up and down, they think code enforcement, takes care of high weeds, right? It's just, well, there's a high weed, we need to call code enforcement, and that's really all code enforcement does. So I want to talk a little bit about Rance. So from a public safety standpoint, why is it important that code enforcement is a part of fire department, and more importantly, what does it add to our public safety?
Sure. So code enforcement works a lot behind the scenes, and a lot of people may not always see our work. I like to think we're unsung heroes, Like you mentioned, Mayor Cole, everybody knows the high grass police, right? Code enforcement comes down the road. Hey, there's a high grass. There's one weed sticking up out of your yard, and we're there with our nice red stickers and making contact with you. We did get moved under the fire department approximately 2014, 2015. With that transition, we came out of community development with planning, building department, and all that. As you interact with anybody around the state, around the country, you'll find code enforcement in all various departments, sometimes standalone, others, underneath, and rarely, honestly, you'll see under the fire department. We've seen them under PD when I do my interactions at trainings and the like. What we found, though, is it just bolsters that support, the level of support between not only fire department, but as you see, we're right next to PSB. We work hand in hand with animal services. They contact us from time to time when they come across a property where they're working it for animals or something related to that or a nuisance that they find. And we can support them and bolster that support. Same with our nuisance abatement at these vacant properties or dilapidated structures you may hopefully not see too many of around town.
Right.
Because we've been hard at work at that. We've identified and had either voluntarily demolished or had the owners hopefully voluntarily demolished, or we've got court orders to demolish. Upwards of going on 20 plus properties, So identifying those risks before they're a problem is the whole goal of code enforcement.
So this truck doesn't have to leave the house.
That's what we're
Enroll.
hoping.
That's
That's
the
what we're
hope.
hoping. Like you talked about the crime rate and all that.
Right.
Some of your other cities, Austin is a great example. They've done studies between the crime rates and the broken window theory is what we call it in code enforcement. It's really our sole source. Walking down the street, you see a broken window, teenager or otherwise, just vagrant. They're more than likely to throw a second rock and break another window, just because it's already started. We want to get to that point where it doesn't have to be a problem anymore, right? We take it back to the foundation, to the source. We educate the people. We're not there to, as you said, be the high grass police. We're there to help you understand why it's important to keep the grass low. If we have a PD call where somebody is running through those woods or through that high grass and weeds, it offers obviously hiding places or other things, right, on the negative side. In the fire department, again, the state law is on high grass and weeds as offensive rank vegetation, 36 inches. At 48 inches, we can technically abate it ourselves because it becomes a fire risk.
Right.
On the prevention side, which is really where we're housed underneath with the fire marshal group, we work hand in hand with them almost on a daily basis. Between calls that we make where somebody's illegally burning, and then we find code-related violations as well.
Right.
So they'll call us up. Or we, vice versa, we run into some and deal with the same thing. And then even with the restaurant inspections, our men and women here and alongside the fire marshals group, they're going out for their fire inspections, right?
Right.
Our group in code enforcement is going out for the health and safety inspections in those restaurants, food establishments, daycares, schools, places that you may not know about. The food truck, that comes to these great events. We're getting those through the mobile food medallion program, so they can operate like that for a period of a year. So it's a large volume and I guess a breadth of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis that people may not know about. One of the trainings that I attended one time, and it always sticks out in my head because a neighboring community and I won't name them, but one of the managers there had told me, "Oh, you're from Pearland. Y'all don't have any code violations, And when I throw it out to her and lay it down, "Oh, we actually do." And honestly, I almost I used to get kind of offended by that because it meant I'm not working. But at the same token, I think it's because of the great work that we try to do that we have, that less amount of violations, right?
That's good.
That hopefully less calls on our PD, our brothers and sisters in blue, and the brothers and sisters here in the fire department, as well. So.
That's good. So, John, I'm going to ask you a question, and it becomes controversial from time to time, and that's, no-kill type of situation. We claim to be no-kill. We have people in our community that don't believe we're no-kill. It's differences of opinion. So, walk through just kind of briefly what no-kill means from a state perspective and what we do to make sure that we're not just blanketly euthanizing animals.
Yes, sir. So there are several fringe definitions of no-kill. Here in Pearland, we chose to follow what's called the Asilomar Accords. The Asilomar Accords was established in 2004 by industry professionals. It was municipal shelters, it was humane societies, SPCAs, rescue groups, and it was a more universal way of collecting and reporting data. The Animal Advisory Board for the City of Pearland recommended we adopt the Asilomar Accords in 2020 as a metric, and we did. So in 2020, we adopted the Asilomar Accords. Essentially, the Asilomar Accords uses the 90% definition. So it says that if 90% of the animals that arrive into your shelter leave the shelter alive, then by definition, you're the no-kill shelter. It's a benchmark, though. It's not a goal. The goal is as many as we can. I'm proud to say that over the last 2 years, a little over 2 years, Pearland has surpassed that 90% benchmark, but we're working harder to get it even further along.
So where are we currently on that? We're over 90, 92, 93%?
As of this morning, we were at 93.7%.
Okay, and so the other percentage, obviously we've had to euthanize some animals, which is unfortunate. What's the majority of the animals that we do have to put down? What's the reason for doing that?
Right, so the Asilomar Accords recognizes that approximately 10% of all animals that you bring into the shelter are going to have some kind of medical trauma or behavioral issue that makes it not safe for them to be in a home. In Pearland, we have not had to euthanize for space or time, probably nearly 2.5 years. All of our cases, majority come from medical cases, animals with trauma that just can't be otherwise saved. Or from time to time, it is a behavior where an animal displays a certain behavior that makes them unsafe to be in a home. So at that time, it becomes an act of compassion that we take seriously.
Right. It's unfortunate, but it does have to happen from time to time. So, Chief Savage, I'm going to wrap up with you real quick. I want to talk about the future of training, future of our academy. What are some of the capital improvement plans and programs that we've got on track to do to enhance our training as well as our academy?
So, as I said before, we have the academy building planned. There's a base level of training that the state mandates we take every 2 years. So there is some stuff that the state mandates, but what keeps us ahead of the curve is the additional training that we mandate for our officers, making sure that they know how to de-escalate, making sure that they're tactically sound, they're up to date on their laws and training. So we're going to keep those initiatives going. So we have the police academy going. In the future, what we're looking for is the gun range and driving track, which would be a huge boon to us because we currently don't have those facilities, and we end up having to use other agencies' facilities for a driving track. We typically will go to Pasadena. For a firing range, we will either go to Lake Jackson, where we have a cooperative range with the prison, or sometimes Alvin Community College, which is limited.
Right.
So that's what we're looking toward the future.
So we're continuing to, our efforts to give our men and women in law enforcement as well as in our fire department the tools necessary to keep you and I safe. We think it's important that we have the latest and the greatest, ultimately for your benefit. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time and effort. Thank you for being a part of Pearland and our public safety family. We really do, and I want to thank you for your individual expertise and what it means to our city. Thank you. All right. Chief, there you go. John, thank you. Rance. All right, we're going to turn to questions and answers. I'm not sure if we had any submitted online or not, but I'll just go to the audience. Does anybody have a question that you came here that you wanted to ask? Just raise your hand. Friendly crowd. I love it. I think that's me. Oh, right here. Great question. I can't hear him. How big is Pearland? So in the census of 2020, we were officially 125,800 and change. We think that was underreported. We think today we're closer to 130,000. And since I'm the mayor and I can declare it 130, I'm just going to say it's 130,000. No, we're plus or minus 130. When you start talking about our ETJ, the area that's around our city, we're knocking on the door of 150, 145 to 150. Obviously, people who don't live in the city but drive in our city, so we have to deal with them and those types of things. Speaking of our ETJ, speaking of public safety, most of the area outside of the city are in what they call ESDs, or emergency services districts. Years ago, we served our ETJ, but today they have ESDs. They have a tax on those ESDs and their property values, and we contract with them, so our fire and EMS will make calls into our ETJ, and we're paid for that. And so that's actually been a good move over the last several years. A lot of that came down because of harder annexation laws to go into our ETJ. Great question, though. Any other question?
Mayor, we did get one question online asking about a list of resources for hurricane season.
List of resources for hurricane season. I know that we've got that on our website. Do you know the hashtag? www.pearlandtx.gov/prepared. Prepared. Okay. Prepared. You can get the full list of where you need to go to be prepared for hurricane season. And if you're here, there's also in the back in our EOC group, they have all of those resources available as well. Most importantly, get plugged in to city website. We're going to be pushing out information if and when we have those types of a storm. So it's real important that you stay up on social media and those types of places in the midst of a storm. For anybody that wondering, our Emergency Operations Center is right over here in the Public Safety Building. It's on the second floor. It's really a state-of-the-art type of facility. We can be connected to the world and the world connected to us in the midst of a storm, and we can be in contact with you should we need to be. So it's real important that our staff is prepared all along the way. Next up, I'm going to bring up a couple of our council members. We have Council Member Woody Owens. Woody, come on up. And Council Member Alex Kamkar. Y'all would welcome them up. I'd appreciate it. Y'all have a seat. At the same time, we've got several other council members present, all of our newly elected council members. We have Council Member Koza right over here. Council Member Berry. And Council Member Cade. Monday night was her first full-fledged council meeting, so we indoctrinated her with an 8-hour day. So, yeah, now she's ready to go. She's raring to go. But we thank them for being here tonight. As we, I'll give this to Woody. So Woody Owens was first elected in 2000. He's considered probably our most senior council member with the most tenure. Tenure on our council. Seen a lot. Woody and I served when I was on council, and he on council together back in many days ago. Member Kamkar is one of our newer elected. He's in his first term, elected in the COVID year. And we had that marathon election time. And so we have two different ends of the spectrum as far as council is concerned. And we want to talk about our strategic priorities. Council gets together every year and we talk about our strategic priorities. One of the things as mayor that I really want to make sure that we do is we do things with intention, that we do things with a strategic plan behind it, that we know exactly where we're headed. And sometimes it's not always easy to know exactly where we're headed. We've got to get 7 council members and myself kind of on the same page and moving all in the same direction. In fact, our leader this year called it a kindergarten class. You got kindergartners running everywhere, and the teacher has to do this to get them all going. And it's a good analogy, actually. I'm the kindergarten teacher, and I have my kindergarten class, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and we've got to get everybody on the same page and everybody moving in the same direction. And when that happens, and you have good leadership throughout the council, and you have good leadership in the staff, and you have great employees, going down through the levels, doing their job, great things happen. And that's really the intent behind strategic planning, to make sure that we're doing it with a purpose and with intent, and then all of our initiatives flow out of that. And if it's something in our budget and it's not tied back to one of those, it's not needed. So it needs to be very critical in how we do that. But Woody, you've been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. Public safety and a safe community is probably one of the paramount things that's, in fact, it's the number one goal that we have. But explain to the folks what you've seen in the last now 22 years change here in Pearland.
Yeah, a lot of things happened over the last few years through there. You kind of get tickled sometimes going back and thinking about the way we used to do things. And we used to have a strategic planning, and everybody got $1,000 in play money, and
there you go.
we'd come out with priorities, and everybody put money within each one of the bailiwicks. So I want a new police facility, so I let everybody put their money in, and I put my whole $1,000 into the police facility, and that's how we got it going and moving forward of doing that. So. Little strategic plan.
You didn't stuff the ballot box, did you?
Yeah. No, but we got what we wanted. We needed it. There's been a lot of changes over here. It's kind of unique. Pearland, we sit in Missouri County, Fort Bend County, Harris County. Got, 5 different school districts within the area here. So we're kind of unique of where we're at. And it's been a lot of changes over a period of time that we've gone through. And, but I guess right now I'm serving my 18th year on City Council. And but going back and looking at it over the period of time, we've had some really good people to come in and to serve with us together on there that really had an interest. We had discussions today on the ISO.
ISO rating, right.
That had a lot of discussion. We can't afford this many fireplace, houses around here on anything like that. And so a lot of discussions. And, the other night we were there at council meeting at 12:30 last Monday night. That didn't set any kind of record. When we were actually in building out this 3,700 acres over here on Pearland, a lot of times we didn't leave out till 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And that would be a full day of sitting up there, and all of us would work, so we had to go back out and work the next day. But it needed a lot of definition, a lot of things needed to be done. But over the period of time that I've been on, I have actually served with a lot of good people that had the interest of Pearland at heart. And I can honestly tell you that over the period of time, each one of the council members, they didn't do anything to do for themselves individual. It was always for the people of Pearland, what was the best interest for the people in Pearland, and to be able to do that. So, and right now it still continues to be that way, that we look at the entire city, where we're at and what is in the best interest for us. The mayor and I served, 6 years together? Right. I never thought about it. He ran my first campaign in 2000, and then he gave me the oath of office last time. So you never would think all of that would transition on that pretty amount of time. But it's been a lot of work involved in it, but it's worthwhile. City's a good city. Mayor Reed always said that, every time we have a new person come into the city of Pearland, it makes us a better city.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. It really does. We based them upon the people. So
all right.
It's good to be a council member. Sometimes it's not so good,
Most of the
but
time
other times it's okay.
Yeah.
You get these calls at night sometimes, and so, but other than that, it's really good. We got a great group of people.
Well, hand that to Alex over there, and as you do, Woody brings up a good point. It really is rewarding. I think that's the key word. It's rewarding to serve. It's rewarding to sit back And sometimes we have to arm wrestle, sometimes we have to draw straws, sometimes we have to do all those kind of things. And to his point about looking out to the best interest of the people, when I served on council, I could lose a vote. Didn't lose many, but I lost some. And when you lose a vote, I knew I could look in the mirror and say, number one, I looked at it from the best interest of the city at heart. But I also knew that my brothers and sisters on the council did the same thing. I could lose a vote and know that the best interest was still being looked at. And so that was comforting. I could get up the next day, we move on, we lock arm in arm, and we're in this together as a team. Member Kamkar, I want to talk a little bit about our strategic planning and our retreat.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, last year was the first one that we had done in many years, and then this year we came back, and I think we improved a little bit. Tell the folks a little bit about that process from your perspective, and how do you think it went?
Sure, absolutely. Let me do a teeny bit of housekeeping. I want to thank Pearland Fire, the PD, the comms for putting on this great event. It's fantastic. The public's with us.
Yeah.
I want to thank our new council members for being elected. I'm not the new guy anymore,
Right.
so that's refreshing. I would tell you that the strategic plan that the mayor brought that idea to council, so I have to give credit. We got the senior leadership at City Hall. We got the leadership of the elected officials, and we're able to kind of discuss where do we want the city to go to. Where we are is on the shoulders of what happened in 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010. And so where we are today is a compilation of efforts, council members, staff members, frontline personnel. And in this case, we're deciding what do we want Pearland to be in 2025, 2030, 2040. And I think the arm wrestling analogy is real. We have a facilitator say, well, 3 people think this, and 2 people think this, and 1 person thinks this over here. And you have to collate all those ideas into something tangible. And it doesn't happen overnight. And we have to start being, what I would say, the word is intentional.
Right.
Of where do we want to go. And
Right.
I think that process, we had the second edition recently, I want to say it was like in the last 90 days, right around the first quarter,
Right.
where we're following up. Well, here's what we said last year. Did we go do that? And what I would like to say to the citizens, the staff is, if you went and look at our list of priorities, number 1 through 10 from last year, we knocked off a couple of those items off the
did.
list.
We
And
did.
so sometimes local government seems like nothing changes or we don't do it, but it takes time, but you start knocking things off those lists. And so this fire station is one of those examples. The one that we have down close to 288, another example, increasing capacity, response times. That's one of those items on the list. And so I was very happy to be able to see in less than 12 months that we knocked a couple of items off the list.
So with that, one of our number one priority was strong or a safe community.
That's right.
So I know you're a huge proponent of
Oh,
safety
absolutely.
in our community, as all of our council
Absolutely.
are. So tell me a little bit about that priority and what does that mean to you?
Sure. I think when we look at what we've been dealing with as a community, the community has changed. There was a point where I always hear dead man's curve, and there was nothing out past this pasture.
Real quick, Dead Man's Curve used to be right there.
Right.
At that corner.
And when the community has changed, the needs change and they evolve. Everybody knows who pays attention, at least to anything I say, drainage is one of my favorite words.
Right.
And the reality is, as we've had our friends at the National Weather Service come and tell us, drainage and flood infrastructure is public safety. Those dollars are now public safety dollars, because if we don't make those investments, the fire folks, the police folks have to go fish you out.
Right.
And so we are making those investments. Last year, we approved our first high water rescue boat that came in. We're training on it. So God forbid we never have to use that. But if we do, and we have to get you out of Clear Creek, or we have to get you out of Mary's Creek because it's become a river, we have the capability to go and save you. And that is one of those things where public safety evolves. Many times we think public safety is the big fire truck behind me, or the large police vehicle, the blue and white. And that is a part of it, but we have to evolve to deal with the threats as they come. I think another thing, you talked about it a little bit, Mayor. We have a gigantic city. We have a lot of pass-through folks. The 288 corridor has now been expanded.
Right.
The toll roads are now open. You have a lot of pass-through traffic. We have folks here who not necessarily live here, but we have to deal with all of the good and the bad.
Right.
We get more sales tax revenue. We have visitors, but sometimes those visitors are gangbanging or they're doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. And so we have to evolve manpower. We have to evolve our techniques we have to evolve our equipment. One of those items recently was the ALPR cameras that we talked about.
Right.
Chief Savage, Chief Spires talked about that we had the need. We've distributed those to different community HOAs that have applied, and we've already deployed some of those dollars, and they're up and running. And one of those instances was there was somebody who a camera got hit, and just for the record, those are not for traffic control in any way, shape, or form, but they load in the license plates of folks who are being looked for, stolen vehicles, maybe vehicles associated with a crime, and they caught somebody recently, and it took the hit. And what happened? The blue and white goes, wah, 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 and goes and chases that guy. They abandoned the car. We did not catch them, but I have a funny feeling they're not coming back to Pearland anytime soon.
But we recovered the vehicle,
That's
more
correct.
importantly. Very
Correct,
big.
Mayor. And so that is one of those things where we're evolving public safety as a deterrent to be a safer community. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm seeing as having been here about 4.5 years. It is very different than the experience that my council member to the right has had, but it is an experience that we are meeting those challenges.
Right.
And we're evolving capacity. The ISO is an example of that. We are finding ways to get the training facility online
Right.
to increase capacity.
Right.
And those are things that I have kind of seen that we're working on those lists and trying to knock those goals down.
Right. Well, I want to thank both of you. Councilmember Owens, for your years of service and your friendship and your camaraderie on the council. You bring that to the table, and I appreciate that. Councilmember Kamkar, thank you for your service, your passion, obviously drainage and those type of things. You can't produce passion, either you have it or you don't. And I appreciate the passion that you have for a safe community, right along with what we have. And you're right, drainage is a part of being safe in our community. And so I want to thank both of you for your participation tonight and your service to our community.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
That's why we put a kill switch on his mic.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Well, we're going to be wrapping up. Most importantly, just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and spending your evening here with us. This equipment is your equipment. You purchased it. You purchased it through your tax dollars. In some cases, like the mobile command, a lot of that was through seizure assets through the state. So we have that as a great asset here in our community in the event that we need it, right? You have the large equipment right over to the side. Most of that, all of that comes from the federal government. When they're done with it, they repurpose it to the local communities. The only expense that we have to obtain it is to go pick it up. We just have to transport it here. Once it's here, obviously we have to maintain it, but we don't have to pay for it to acquire it. So it's a great partnership. We have 6 or 8 pieces of equipment like that. So in the event that we need it, we have it. So it's a great partnership with our federal partners in order to do that. Chief, I want to thank you for housing us tonight. We're in one of your houses. You've been a great host, and we want to thank you for that. Your men and women in your department getting this ready. I know it's driving them nuts that we're walking all over this great clean floor, but I know you come by tomorrow and you'll see it, and it's spot clean, and that's the way these guys operate. But we want to thank you for that. Chiefs, absolutely. Absolutely. Chief Savage, thank you for being up here. Thank you. We're next door at the Public Safety Building. Thank you to and all the officers that are here and the equipment, showing people around some of the neat toys, the drones and all those kind of things that we can do. The enhancements, and those drones are a lot cheaper than people. So we can do these enhancements as Member Kamkar talked about. And also, you may hear them referred to as flock cameras. That's a brand name. And incidentally, the one he's talking about, we put one in within 40 minutes of deploying the camera, we had a hit. And that's the hit he's talking about. I believe it was a stolen vehicle. We didn't catch the guy, but we got the vehicle back. It's life and death situations, and it's property situations. And we want to protect all of those as much as we can. Started rolling. But with that, our next talk of the town, we're going to take over a First Friday from the Chamber of Commerce. Their First Friday in October, it's going to be at Valinson's, which is one of our breweries. That will happen from 2 to about 4. We're going to take over after that, We're going to be talking all about small business in our community. We're going right into the holiday season, so we want to make sure that we bolster and hold up our small business community and do everything we can for those shops to thrive in our community. Next week, July the 4th, we are moving forward with all of our festivities for Celebration of Freedom, Independence Park. I believe we kick off at 6:30. You can see all the fun festivities. Fireworks will go off somewhere just as dark time, 9 to 9:15. Great display as always. Lots of music, lots of entertainment, food trucks all over the place. So come on out and be a part of that, and let's celebrate the freedoms that we have here in Pearland and here in this great state, and obviously a great United States of America. So I want to thank you. Y'all be careful as you go home. Practice good public safety and all those kind of things, and come back to the next Talk of the Town. Thank you. And incidentally, if you want to hit that on your phone, you can provide feedback so we can continue to do this in a great fashion.